Hi everyone, my name is Lynne McCullough and I would like to add my support to the Fair Wage Onstage movement with my union Actors Equity. A little bit about my story. I've been a resident of New York City for almost 30 years now, and I've always worked. When I first came here, I was young enough to work as a waitress while I pursued my craft and did a lot of theater, off Broadway, for a long time and managed to keep things together. As I've gotten older, I started taking more full-time positions because when I was working off Broadway, there was the possibility to schedule around my work hours, so I was able to make a living wage and do theater as well. By the time I was about 40, I was no longer up to waitressing and was working in full-time corporate office positions. And then at that point, I was actually able to purchase an apartment. This is about 20 years ago now, when Manhattan real estate was affordable. And that's been great. I've had my own home in New York City for 20 years. I live up in Washington Heights. And then I got my first off-Broadway show, which was wonderful. As you can imagine, I was thrilled. I think that we all look forward to and work towards working in these extraordinary theaters with fantastic staff and actors and writers and directors and stage managers. I mean, the quality of work is just extraordinary, and we all want to do it. But at that point, I could not stay in a full-time position, my survival job, because it didn't have that kind of flexibility. And so I then started temping. And many of you will probably know when you temp, you're not getting the kind of benefits you get when you're working a full-time position. But this is something that I was willing to do, and at the time it was doable. It wasn't easy, but it was doable. Again, this is 20 years ago. And here we are 20 years later. I've worked in several off-Broadway shows, all extraordinary experiences with people I will always be proud and delighted to have worked with. In fact, I'm in an off-Broadway show now, and it's every bit as wonderful as all the other experiences have been. But what's happened over the years is that temp positions have gotten not only harder to get, but they've become a lot less flexible than they used to be. And in fact, what you'll find will happen after you get off working an off-Broadway show is that you take your resume and seek employment, and the question is, well, why haven't you been working, in the corporate environment for the past 3 months? And the answer is, well, I'm an actress, and companies are reluctant, more so than they used to be, to take you on. In fact, I did one off-Broadway show some years ago, an extraordinary show, two actually in repertory, very big plays. And I had just secured what I thought was the answer, which was a graveyard shift. It was 11:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. And I thought, well, this is great. I mean, as weird as that shift was, at least I'll be free to audition. And if I get cast in something, shows rarely go past 10:30. I'll be able to get to work on time, and all will be well. Well, what happened was, within the 3-month trial period, probationary period that I had this job, I got cast as an understudy in this big off-Broadway show. And it kind of worked out. It was crazy. I mean, I would get off work at 7:30 and maybe get an hour to myself at home, and then get to the theater at 10 a.m. to rehearse, and then have to be at the theater for a couple of hours while the show was going on, and then I would get released at about 11 o'clock, and I could make it to my 11:30 p.m. gig. And I would sleep. I would just grab sleep here and there. I would sleep on the floor of the lobby of this theater between acts, and I somehow managed to do it. But then at the end of that 3-month period, I got cast to take over the role that I was understudying for, and suddenly I found myself performing in an off-Broadway play. It was a huge dream, this production, everything about it. And the show didn't get out until 11:45, and I was not able to keep that fabulous survival job that I had waited so long to get. So what I hope people will understand is the commitment that actors have to this work is so extraordinary, and we really do sacrifice an awful lot for it. And no one is expecting a handout or to get rich. I think we all understand that you can't make a living doing just theater. And everyone I know has survival jobs. But what do I want to say? What's happened in New York over the years, certainly over the last 10 years, is that it's just not doable anymore. I mean, in fact, to the point where I'm really looking at selling my home so that I can pay off the debt that I've acquired over the years when I take time off to do an off-Broadway show, because it always costs me money. And it's actually going to be more affordable for me to work in New York, hopefully in more off-Broadway shows, by not living in New York, by commuting in to audition for and hopefully do these shows. And I think that's a shame. I think that a big part of the New York arts scene is comprised of its actors and its stage managers, as well as its writers and directors and the wonderful administrators we have. But the fact is that actors just can't make a living while they're doing an off-Broadway show, and it's untenable. It has to change. Otherwise we're looking at the only people who can do theater at that level in this town are going to be people who are independently wealthy. And what is that going to do to the breadth of talent that we currently have in the city? I mean, I think right now we're looking at a diaspora of actors and stage managers, truly extraordinarily talented people who I think deserve to be paid a living wage while they're working on these shows. So that's my story. Thanks for listening, and fair wage on stage.